this compost is 2 years old, so it should be completely composted. There's still a little bit in here that didn't get stirred up very well. But the problem I have is my compost pile ended up being sitting on a bunch of stone. I didn't know it was under the ground, so when I stirred up the compost pile, it had all these like river rocks that got stirred into the compost and mixed in. So now I'm adding rocks to the garden that I don't want to. So we'll be picking out rocks today as we till this up. Some of these rocks are not a bad size, really. Yeah, when I built that compost bin, I had no idea that just a couple inches under the soil was a huge solid layer of these river rock. And apparently back in the 40s or 50s or 60s, well, actually I think I know that it was in the early 1900s, because my grandmother remembered playing in the rocks in front of the old house. So these rocks have probably been around for years, and that's what they used for gravel back then. They probably just went down the creek and scooped them out and brought them up here. So here's all the wood ash. Luckily, there is no wind right now. Kind of got lucky. Even though there's no wind, it'll still blow around. All right, that's all the amendments that I have to add to the soil. Let's go ahead and get tilled in. Hey guys, I'm Evan. Welcome to Country View Acres. So over the last couple weeks, we have been really busy around here. We haven't really filmed a lot of it. One of it is the garden. I've been coming out here of an evening working on it. Hopefully we're gonna finish that up today. I've also cleared a lot of the weeds around the pond and weed eated completely around the pond, cut down some trees. So we got some cleanup over there to do. We've got 25 meat bird chicks. We got those in the mail last week. They're in the brooder. We just got a lot going on, plus all the fence that you saw us put in. And we got a lot planned for July as well. So I want to probably work on the garden and the pond today and try to cover everything we got planned, or at least what I want to work on in the coming month. So it's July 2nd, and I know we're like 2 months behind getting our garden planted, but better late than never. So I added compost and wood ash on here last night. I tilled that in one time. It's a pain to try to till this fenced-in garden area. So I can only get in between a couple of these posts here. There's only 2 small openings. The tractor barely fits in. And you have to till it in about 3 different directions to get the whole thing tilled. It doesn't work for me. I've learned to hate it. So the idea was, I have these openings that I can get in and out with the tractor. I could put a piece of fence across there and I can close it back up. It's like a temporary opening. I think originally I was gonna put some gates on there. But what I wanna do now is I think I just wanna tear this whole side out, basically. I just wanna remove this whole side so I can get in and out with the tractor, and I can put a temporary fence along this side. Drive some T-posts, put a fence up, take it up and down every year. I think I would like that a lot better, having you know, full access with the tractor. And so we're going to start there, and then we're going to go ahead, get it tilled up, and get it planted. So I just pulled out the 3 posts in the middle. I removed a couple of fence panels here, and that gave me about a 30 to 32 foot opening along this side to be able to get the tractor in and out of. Way better access. So I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna till this probably a couple more times, make sure everything's good and mixed up. We can go ahead and get it planted. So I just finished planting 4 rows of seeds here in the garden. You can see we're not gonna put down fabric this year. So this is a little bit different. So last year's, the fabric, the weeds had taken over. They had gone through all the holes in the fabric where the plants were. And when we went to pull it up, we ended up tearing the fabric. We kind of ruined it. And that fabric normally lasts like 7 years if you take care of it. Needless to say, we didn't take care of our fabric this last time. It got away, the weeds got away from us. So instead of putting all new fabric down, we're going old school this year, doing more of a traditional in-ground garden. So on this side of the garden, I planted 2 rows of corn. It's not sweet corn, it's actually glass gem corn. This is a very colorful variety. It's marketed, I think, mostly as a popcorn. And I think you can also use it as a flint corn also. That means you could grind it into cornmeal. So a little bit of an experiment maybe. We'll see how it does as popcorn, but then we also have a grinder, so we may grind this into cornmeal as well. So in this next row over here, I ended up planting the mammoth sunflower seeds. These are huge sunflowers. They're like, get to be about an 18-inch head on them, full of sunflower seeds. You can cut them off and basically give them to your chickens as a treat. So this is basically, we're planting this for the chickens. Overall, we may see if the ducks and some of the other birds want it as well. So on this side of the garden, I planted a row of green beans. It is the Blue Lake bush bean, and when these get ready, we'll harvest these and we will can them. So in these raised beds around the perimeter of the garden, we got bell peppers, we got banana peppers, we've got jalapenos, chili peppers, We've got paste tomatoes, slicing tomatoes. We got a bunch of peppers and tomatoes planted around the edge of the garden. And some of these have been out here for a few weeks now. And in the rest of the raised beds, they ended up sort of planting themselves. So last year we planted a lot of potatoes around the edge. We only harvested half of them. So the other half were still out here in the raised beds. And then they ended up regrowing. So I think we've got 5 raised beds, I think, that are full of potatoes from last year that grew back, and we have some that are already ready to be harvested here in a few weeks. So we still have some of the potatoes that we harvested last year, and they've gone to seed. So I'm going to go ahead and take these. I'm just going to plant them down this row right there. So I've only got one full-length row left, and I'm just going to go ahead and plant it with Black Beauty zucchini. So I'm going to plant probably 2 or 3 seeds every 5 feet all the way down the row. So over here along the fence, I'm just going to plant some pickling cucumbers. They may spread out, they may go up the fence. We'll just see what happens. They may block these weeds, so you don't see those either. All right, I think the garden is planted for now until fall or when it starts to cool off. I'd like to thank my dad for letting me borrow his tiller. Luckily, he lets me borrow this every year, or else this would be a job that's probably 5 times as big if you didn't have something like this to be able to work up the soil and get everything prepped for planting. So thanks, Dad, for letting me borrow the tiller. Let's go ahead now. Let's get a sprinkler out here in the middle, see if we can get this watered down, and then we'll go clean up around the pond. You see that big fish right there? That's one of the grass carp. Hopefully you can see it. Thing's probably 2 foot long now. Man, you can see the scales on it. It's a big fish. There you guys go. You guys are going through this food like crazy. It's because all the wild ducks. So as long as you ignore the duckweed in the pond actually looks a lot better with the shoreline all trimmed up, all the tall grass and weeds and brush cut down around the shore. Just makes it it looks more picturesque, even though the duckweed looks horrible. And it's 4th of July week. We had family actually stop by last night and walk around and hang out for about an hour, and we got more family gonna come this weekend for a cookout. So just try and get everything looking good for the holiday week. Let's go ahead and talk about what I want to try to do this month. It's the month of July. It's like one of the hottest months of the year. It's miserable to be outside. So I would like to be able to work on some projects that are maybe inside if I can. But the first thing I need to do is I need to get all these pipes cleaned up from building the fence. So I'd like to figure out exactly how many of these I need, get them rust prevented, painted, and all stacked up and ready for as I continue to build this fence. I just want to get this concrete cleaned off so I can get in and out of the workshop to work on things. So once we have access to the inside of the workshop, I'd like to take a couple pieces of equipment, bring them inside and try to fix them. So the post hole digger, it leaks oil real bad out of the gearbox. I'd like to just tear that apart, put new seals in it, clean the whole thing up and just repaint it, just make it look a lot better. And then our 7-foot brush hog that goes on the bigger tractor, it leaks oil bad too. So I'd like to take the blades off of it, take the gearbox out, put new seals on it, sharpen up the blades, put it back together. And then of course we have the Allis Chalmers D17 in the workshop probably go ahead and go back to work on that, see if we can get it put back together and running. So we'll probably start back on that machine. So try to do a little bit of equipment repairs in the workshop where it's air conditioned and definitely a lot cooler to work in for sure. So another project that I want to start this month is I bought some more solar power. I bought an off-grid inverter with batteries. This is like a budget system. It's a cheap, cost-effective way to expand the solar power that I already have. I got some more solar panels as well, but I'm probably going to put those up in the fall when it's cooler. But I'm going to install this new system in my basement, and it'll run probably about a third of our house, and my existing system is going to run the other 2/3. And it's basically going to double the amount of storage that I have for power, so I can run twice as long during a power outage, and I'll end up almost doubling the amount of power overall that I have, like power output. So it's just a budget, cost-effective way to be able to expand my system, and it doesn't have any power company requirements because it's an off-grid system. And when we're done, I will be really close to being where the house itself is almost completely off-grid. So we've got our electric bill down to where it's about $50 a month of power. There's about a $30 charge to have the meter, about $50 for power, and this ought to take us down about the rest of the way to zero. So besides those projects, of course, we're going to continue on our fence build and our corral area as long as the weather, like on the nicer days, when it's nice to be outside, we'll work on those projects. And of course, we still have all our animals and our meat birds and everything that we're raising out here that of course we're going to have to take care of. But it would be nice during these hot summer months to be able to have some indoor projects to be able to work on. But anyway, I think that's going to be it for today's video. Finally got the garden planted. Doesn't look like much because it's mostly just tilled dirt right now. Looks pretty bare, but we'll give it some time. I still think there's plenty of time for the corn and the beans and the potatoes and all that stuff to grow and be able to harvest them, before we get a frost in the fall. I think we still got a few months, long enough to grow those items. So we'll just have to wait and see. I know it's late on the garden, but hopefully we'll still get quite a bit of produce before it's all done and over with. But I think that's going to be it for this video, guys. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.